Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to Wellness by Design today. I know that a lot of people in my audience, we are midlife women, and we're wondering, like, oh, what's next? Feeling like, okay, there's something I'm supposed to be doing. How do I do that? Well, my guest today, Sheree Clark, is going to talk about that. I'm really excited to welcome Sheree to the show. And I'll tell you a little bit about Sheree before we get started. Sheree is a midlife courage coach. Now, how cool is that? She's a television show host, inspiring speaker, accomplished author, and she has written and presented on topics ranging from finding your passion to overcoming career burnout. Her fork in the road coaching practice keeps her busy with clients one on one and in groups on creating an authentically fulfilling life. In her personal time, Sheree and her cat Lotus work on their yoga poses. I love that. Sherry's got a Maine Coon cat like I do. And that's one of the first things I noticed when I researched her, Sheree, was like, you have this beautiful cat as well who shows up a lot in your things.
Yes, he
So
does. And he's huge.
welcome to Wellness by Design, Sheree. I want to talk about, like, you became a midlife courage coach. Now that's very interesting. How did you get to this point in your life and that took you to this part of your career?
Well, Jane, great question. So let's start with the definition. People use the term midlife and they're not really sure what that encompasses. And for me, I guess it's partly chronological. It's partly years based. You think of being midlife, you think of 40 and up. Um,
Mhm.
and many times people will say, well, 40 until, and then they'll have an end date. And I don't. I think that midlife begins when you decide that it begins, and it doesn't ever end. I don't use the term elderly. I don't even like the word senior. It's to me, it sounds kind of like, oh geez, out to pasture. And so for me, the whole thing is I realized that as I had more experience here on the planet and grew in number of years that I had been here, that different challenges came my way, and the things that at one point were gratifying and satisfying weren't anymore. And I knew that I couldn't be the only one. But I also knew that it was one of those things that you felt a little bit scared to talk about.
Mhm.
So I decided that it was going to be the direction. It's the thing I have passion about, and I think we should always be passionate about what we do in our lives.
Passion is so important. I remember Julia Child saying, hearing a quote by her saying, being passionate about what you do, whether it's growing earthworms or cooking like she did, just having that passion is a secret to happiness, really. So I love what you're doing because it is helping women feel passionate, feeling engaged in life, and just generally just being our super selves, right? That we came here to be. So I love that. I love that. So courage. Let's talk about the word courage and why this is integral to what you're doing.
So I think that women are smart. And I think that anybody listening knows a lot about themselves and the world and what they prefer and what they don't. And what's happened, I think, over time is that as we are brought up and raised, we're also taught that on some things we're just wrong. And that if we, like, for example, I am single, never have been married, and never desired to have children. And the paradigm that I grew up in was, well, of course you're going to get married, and of
Mhm.
course you're going to have kids, and of course you're going to, when you have those kids, if you're working, you won't be working anymore, all of that stuff. Well, to bust out of something like that, no matter how smart you are, takes courage. It takes, you could
Yes.
say, balls or guts or whatever it else, whatever thing you wanted to hang as a way to describe it. We all know when we're not being courageous, every one of us. And even as a courage coach, there are times that I have to summon my courage from the bottom of the soles of my feet to be able to do certain things. And they're different things for everybody. That's the other thing. In the
Mhm.
example that I gave, the courage to not cave to social norms, get married, have kids, do,
Yeah.
2.3 children, the station wagon, all that. that was the thing for me that took courage. Another thing that for me that took courage was walking away from a business that I had built and owned for 25 years that was successful and making a crap ton of money, but I didn't love it anymore. And it takes courage to say, you know what? I don't care how much money I have or make or how much everybody around me says, you should keep doing this. It's a good gig. It takes courage
Mhm.
to say, yeah, okay, that's great. It's good for you, not for me.
Yeah.
So that's what I think about courage. Courage even to when you're having lunch with your friends and they all order burgers and you've decided for New Year's you wanted to be a vegetarian. The courage to be able to say, I'm not having that. Thank you though.
Mm. Oh, I love it, Sherry, because in what I do in teaching people to let pain go, it takes courage to make lifestyle changes. It takes courage to think do things like not be around the people that are causing stress in your life. It takes courage to for me, I left a career like but that I think what's really magical about courage, guts, whatever it is like when you do that, when women do this, we are encouraging that superpower that we have. Like we're putting us and what we want first. Do you see this in your clients that that when they invoke their courage or just are really gutsy that it gives them some extra power? Do you see this, Sherry?
Oh, heck yeah. I mean, and you can see it the instant there's just the tiniest modicum of success. And it's kind of like if you think about, I live in the Midwest and it's a four-season state, so we've got snow right now. So if you think about creating a snowman, and if you know how to do that, you start with a little snowball and then you roll it and then it accumulates more snow and it grows. Well, I think of courage as being very much the same way. It snowballs when you have the guts to do, let's say, of the examples that I gave earlier, probably the littlest one would have been the decision to order something different at lunch. If you just start there with a little thing that you're like, well, what I really wanted was this, but what I did was that instead, then it gives you that a win. It's like the
Mhm.
success. It's like saving money where you're like, oh my gosh, I got another zero in my account. Cool. I'm going to keep going.
Yeah. Okay. So when we go to really be courageous, sometimes there can be pain that goes along with that, right? The pain of, well, perhaps someone is going to be hurt by you picking a different route. So your suggestion is to start small, do these small little wins to help you build up that courage. How do you suggest people deal with some of this pain that other people have around them growing in a different way than other people expect us to grow?
Well, the first part is to understand, truly understand with empathy why that might be. So if
Mm,
there are people in your orbit that are not supportive of a certain thing, understand that for them comes from their, I'll call it, place of pain. So a friend who sabotages your diet, and again, I'm just using that as an example because it's low hanging fruit and everybody can probably understand that. A friend that sabotages your diet is is discouraged in her own realm or world, or has maybe competitive feelings with you, or whatever those things are. So if you can understand or put yourself in that person's shoes, not from a judging standpoint, but from a perspective standpoint, where you can say, I guess I understand where that comes from. And then that's the starting point to be able to really see, instead of taking on a moniker or a mantle or a role of victim. I'm victim. Nobody wants me to succeed. I'm this, I'm that. Nobody wants anything from me. Damn it. It's my turn. Instead of adopting that, say, I wonder why it is that that person isn't supporting me right now. Be curious, not furious,
mm,
and sit with that for a little bit.
mm,
The second thing I would do would be to do a reality check. Many
mhm.
times we assume that person's never going to support me. He's never going to say yes to me getting a part-time job. She's never going to whatever. but you don't know until you ask. There were things, even as a young girl, that I asked my parents, fully expecting them to say no, and they shocked the hell out of me and said yes. Sure, you could go to California for the summer. Really? Okay.
I love what you said there about being curious, not furious, because it really bring highlights that idea of being like the witness and the observer of what's going on in your life, as opposed to being in the story of it and like, she doesn't want me to, getting into that whole story. It's just like, she's coming, she's got this perspective based on her life experiences and her own things that she's dealing with. It's not really about me at all.
Yes.
So I really love what you said there. So how when people are making changes, and you said to start small, like what about, how do they even know? How do they even figure out what it is? They may feel like something's missing, but how do they figure out what is it? What is it that's missing? Do you have any suggestions for that?
What a great question, because a lot of people sit in that thing where I had it when I left the advertising agency, when I sold out my share of it to my business partner. Um, Everything in my world was perfect.
Mhm.
Everything. I had money, I traveled, I had acclaim, I had written books. I mean, people wanted to be me. And when you're in that position and you're like, but there's a big word, but I have a hole right here in my heart, in my soul, and I don't know what it is. And there's nothing worse than that feeling, to feel like there's something off and something wrong, but I don't know what. And so there are a couple of things that you can do for that. And the first one is to, I think, look inward and see if, one of the questions I like to ask my clients when I coach is, well, what do you think it is? And typically they'll say, well, I don't know. That's why I came to you. And I might say to them, well, if you did know,
Yeah.
what would it be? Because sometimes that's all it takes, is for someone to say that you have permission to. Another way of saying it is, what are you pretending you don't know?
Love that.
And because at the end of the day, we do know. It might take
We
some
do.
teasing, it might take some support, it might take some massage. Don't get frustrated if it doesn't happen on the first time. I didn't learn how to drive a stick shift car the first time I went out with one,
Mhm.
out on one. So you don't learn those things, but that would be the first step, first part. And the second would be, if there is someone in your orbit, a trusted other, someone who doesn't have a horse in your race, so to speak, or if they do, can step back and be objective and share your sense of feeling lost with them. It's partly why, Jane, you and I do the work that we do. We
Mhm.
can be that compassionate placeholder, the person that provides that safe space where exploration can be done, where you can say, I don't know, and burst into tears. And the other person I don't try to fix anybody.
Right.
I don't try to make it all better. I can sit with you in that space and say, I know we're going to come out the other side of it.
Yeah.
I don't make stuff up. So,
Mhm. I do believe that we do have that higher, wiser, all-knowing part of ourselves that does know, does have the answers. And sometimes, as you said, when you're in that coaching position, you are objective, and so you can just give someone the space to just like uh, speak or just ramble, and then reflect back to them. And a lot of times, and that reflecting back is where they can see, I can see some of the answers here. I can see, and you know what? It is all. It doesn't even have to be like a whew. Now I have all the answers. It's like little steps, right? Well,
yes.
what could I do to feel more fulfilled or better today? What's one little thing I could do, or in the next week, or this year, or how we're at the beginning of the year now, right? Which is a great time to look at, what do I want to do this year? So, what are some common mistakes that you see where people are not really they're not fulfilling themselves. They're not like going for it. What are some things you see there?
I think the first thing is not having the wherewithal to entertain the idea, like you can see how far back I'm going here. Uh, Entertain the idea that change might be possible. To simply say, to shut the door and say, nobody in my family's ever done that,
Mhm. Mhm.
or whatever the limiting belief or thought is, to not even consider that there is another possibility. That's a frustration for me as a coach, because I live in a world that's defined by possibility. It's limitless. It's like, okay, well, if this isn't possible because of this factor, how do we get a workaround? It's like when you've got computer issues. For me, that all the time, if I'm like, I don't know how to fix this, what can I do instead to at least get my immediate issue resolved? So that would be probably a big first one. I think the other thing is that there are times that people feel very much alone. They feel like I'm the only one. Everybody else has it figured out. I'm the loser, And it's not true. I can tell you, I feel like I'm successful. I've accomplished a lot. I have a great life. I love my life. And there have been times I felt less than, trapped, stuck,
Mm.
um, inconsistent. All of the things that I've had to work on and through, were things that I dealt with. And I'm always faced with new ones. And so you just keep going.
Part of the beautiful cycle of life, right? We don't like, okay, now I've done it all. No, we're constantly evolving and growing and changing. And once we've kind of figured out one thing, something else comes along to teach us and help us stretch and grow again, right?
Amen, sister.
So this is what you do. You help women figure out and find the courage to go after their dreams and go after what they want in their life. So I know you do this annual event. Let's hear a little bit about this event.
Well, not surprisingly, I had to give it a name. I remember I came from the advertising world, so I call it the Magnificent Midlife Woman. And this year's sub theme is it's all about the journey. And we talk about the journey through midlife. It's an interview series. Some people call them summits, and they're free. And what I've done is interview fabulous experts like you,
Mm.
about the areas of expertise that they bring to the table. So there are a variety of topics. Many are like the things that we're talking about today: finding courage, making change, big things. But then there are also, maybe I call it the softer side of Sears things. Some of it might be fitness or intermittent fasting, different ways of eating, vision, and do I have to keep getting stronger glasses? Teeth, do I have to consider dentures? Those kinds of things, the topics that concern us as women as we're aging, getting older, those topics and things where can we find support? So that's my series, and it's free.
And when does it start?
It kicks off on January 15th. We're letting people register for it now, and if you're smart, you register for it in advance, because I send you some things in advance, and then you can learn a little bit more about me and about what I stand for, kind of the things that we've talked about today. And I'm sure you're able to give them a link where they can,
I will give them a link. Yep.
yeah, register for that. But it's a great series. It's my 10th. So I'm not new in this realm. And as you indicated in my introduction, I'm a television show host in our local market. So I've had experience interviewing, and I love it.
Well, I gotta say that I thoroughly enjoyed my interview with you, and I'm excited to see all these other amazing experts that you've brought together in like so many different facets of life, but all these things that come up with us women as we get to midlife and we want to be the magnificent women we are meant to be, right? And in midlife and beyond, and then not be held back by things like, it's interesting you mentioned like eyesight. that's something that people worry about, and diet and bones and all these other
And
kinds of things that
alcohol, we talk about our relationships. That's an issue that comes up frequently in
yes.
our demographic. It's one of those things where you're like, is this working for me? Yeah.
Right. Oh, yeah. I'm so excited to hear all the other speakers as well. So I'll definitely will share a link. And let's talk about you mentioned one of the questions we talked about discussing was regrets, because so we get to this point in our life where we look at where we are now, and perhaps we made decisions way back when that have brought us to where we are now, and some people may be looking at some of those decisions with regret. How do you help people deal with regret?
Regret is actually, this is going to sound peculiar to some, one of my favorite topics, because I think of it as a mind, a landmine of where you can blow up some things that have done disservice to you in your life. And I'm not talking about just simply, oh, get over it.
Right.
I think regret serves a purpose. And it doesn't serve its full purpose, or we don't let it serve its full purpose unless we learn our lesson from it. And
Right.
it's not, I'm not talking about like, well, okay, when your mom would say, bet you're never going to do that again. Not that kind of regret lesson, but the kind of lesson that says, why do I keep finding myself in this place? What is it about this that feels familiar? Why do I keep doing that? And again, because it's the beginning of the year, for example, broken resolutions. And
Mhm.
I like to examine not just the broken resolution and how do you get more willpower and get back on that horse, that because I don't think that works. I think what does work is to take a look at something and say, there is an underlying reason here. And moving forward, because I can't do anything about the thing that I'm regretful about. It's in the rearview mirror. How do I look out the windshield and make sure that these are the kinds of things I can circumvent so that I don't keep falling into the same pattern.
I love that, because if we believe that things are here to teach us, our experiences in our life are here to teach us, to help us learn and grow. When we keep having that same kind of lesson over and over again, we haven't learned from it. That's why it keeps showing up, right? So I love what you said about looking and examining to see like what kind of person we are being that keeps having that lesson. So are there strategies and tools you help people with to identify, um, to help them examine it and have that like broader perspective?
Yes, absolutely. And it takes, I have a process that I do with my clients, and it takes a couple of weeks to get through them. But I can give you a starting point so that
Starting point's
anybody,
great.
yes, so anybody listening could say, well, that's great, but what is it? Because I hate that. So the place that I would start sounds icky, but it's not. Trust me. And that is, make a list of your regrets. Make a list of every single
Mm,
one of them you can think of, big, small, a long time ago, current, whatever. And the reason that I have you make an exhaustive list is because you'll find out, and write them down. I'm not talking about a mental list. I'm talking about a written list.
by hand.
By hand,
Yeah.
exactly. Thank you. Yes. Not on your computer, not on your laptop, certainly not on your phone, but a list of your regrets. And what'll happen is, as you start thinking of them, you're going to discover a couple things. Number one, there will be a few that you're like, yeah, it's a regret, but like, for example, let's use a failed marriage.
Mhm.
You might say, well, that's a regret. I shouldn't have married that person, but I wouldn't have had these two great kids if I
Right.
hadn't. So it helps you reframe just by writing. I'm just using that as a mild example and a
Mhm.
pretty obvious one. But as you write the list, other things will happen and other discoveries will occur. And a qualified coach can help you take it through the next steps to figure out, okay, what after that? How do I get further? How do I end up finding peace and actually a little bit of joy from regret?
Mm. Oh, so good, so good. Really love that, and it's not very often you would hear that to say, let's just take a little bit of time to shine a light on these things that if we're thinking of them, and if they do come up, they are still somewhere in our system, right? That we're holding them as a regret, and we do need to get past them. So because well, I'm all about energy, right? So when we have regrets, that's blocked energy, and when we have blocked energy, then it's not going to flow. It can lead to actual physical pain and illness. So I love that you're shining a light on that to not to like mull over, oh, I'm so regret all these things, but to say what are the gifts that were in this? What were the gifts that were in this for me? Because there's always a gift.
And
So
what can I
lovely,
learn?
Sheree.
Thank
Gorgeous.
you.
Do you suggest? I mean, I know there's a lot of stuff that happens in between, but do you suggest doing anything like burning this regret list afterwards or something like that, or just no?
That's not part of the process that
Okay.
I use. However, I have seen people do that and do it successfully. I think the important part is what happens in between, from the making of the list to the burning, and to be clear about the intention. What is it? What am I burning? What am I letting go of, dismissing? Because it's
Right.
not necessarily just the regrettable incident or the poorly chosen spouse or the bad job. It's not about that. It's so I think I would have to think about, in some cases that might be a prudent thing, but in others it's not really part of my process.
I like the way you said that because it's more about examining the person that you were then and what lessons to take from it as the person that you are now.
Yes.
Really, really beautiful. I know Margie said this topic I can relate to. So thank you, Margie. Okay, we're getting low on time. Before I'm going to come back to where people can find you. But before that, I'm going to ask the question that I always ask my guests, and that is, what's one action someone could take today to improve their health? What would you say would be, in your opinion, number one action?
Um, I would say, okay, so I have a little, very brief, if you'll allow me, little exercise that I could lead us through, and this would be an action that people can do right now unless they're driving.
Oh, perfect. Let's do it.
Okay. So I'm going to ask everybody, if you would, to just take a moment to get grounded, take several deep breaths in, and then hold it for just a second, and then release it on a slow exhale at your pace, whatever feels good for you. And then when you feel you're comfortable and that you are conscious and in your body, if you're seated, you're aware of where your sit bones are impacting the chair or wherever you are. And you might, if you're in a chair that has armrests, that you feel your elbows on those rests. You feel your fingertips, you feel your feet on the floor, you feel yourself here and now. And you might close your eyes, and then when you're ready, take your right hand and place it over your heart. And then take a breath, and take your left hand and place that on top of your right. And I'm going to ask a question, and the answer will present itself to you in all likelihood. And the question is, for you and your heart, you're asking yourself and your heart, what do we want? What do we want for us? And then you pause, take another breath. And as you release your hands and rejoin us, the odds are good you had a word or a sensation or a feeling, or maybe you just had tears start to come. All we've done is begin to open a door. That's it. That exercise, the first time you do it, isn't designed to be the answer to, do I stay or do I go, accept the job or not? But it's the beginning of a conversation, which is really where all the magic happens.
Ah, so beautiful, Sherry. I think just going through that one process and just asking that one question. It's like a lot of women, people have never given themselves permission to even ask that question.
Yeah.
So it's giving me goosebumps just doing that. Thank you so much for that. What a beautiful gift. Okay, so I'm going to share the link for how to get to the summit, but where can people find you, Sherry?
So I call my practice Fork in the Road,
Yep.
which I think is appropriate. And my web address is fork-road.com.
And I know that you've got a gift that you are going to give our audience. So I'm going to share that as well. But do you want to talk a little bit about what that gift is?
Yes, I'm doing, if you like to have conversations with yourself, and most of us do, but sometimes the best conversations are the ones that are a little bit have a purpose. And so I've put together some guided prompts. I call them wild cards, and I love them because you can use them as a journal prompt. You can use them as a conversation starter between friends. You can do whatever you would like with them. I like to, when I do take road trips with friends, I bring my wild cards with me, and then we take turns answering the questions.
Oh my gosh, I love it. Okay, I will share the link in the description, but it's also there on the screen if you want to write it down and get it right away, or you can look in the comments. So beautiful. I love that. Sherry, this has been so fun. I just think you're fantastic, amazing, and really, really excited about all these conversations that we're going to be able to see on your upcoming summit. So thank you so much for being my guest today. And thank you for people that are watching, listening. And I'm sure you've gotten a lot out of this, and just giving yourself permission to do and finding the courage to do what you really want to do, your heart's calling, I think is such a beautiful gift you're giving the world, Sherry. So thank you so much for this.
Thank you, Jane.
Okay, bye everyone.